I am Bill Pollock of Missouri Net. The college football playoff ranking system and the committee, it's shown one thing to me, that this 13-person committee is flawed. In my opinion, subjectively looking at football players and football teams is more of an injustice than putting their likeness on a stupid video game, because we've taken away the results on the football field and we've basically have turned this into figure skating. Oh, hey, they look great. Their style is great. How difficult was their routine? I mean, that's what's, forget the fact that, somebody went to, spin on the ice and fell. Well, their routine was harder, so we won't take off as many points. They're still good. It's popularity, and I don't like that about sports. We play these games on the field to determine winners. Now, if you're watching this from outside of Missouri and you're not a Tigers fan, you're going to think that this is a campaign to get Mizzou into the top four, and it's not that at all. The majority of my audience and the majority of my followers are Missouri fans, and so we're certainly going to tie that component into this. But from top to bottom, this playoff formula that this committee is using is flawed. For example, Florida State. All right, preseason, they were voted number one. They have not lost a game since November 24th of 2012. And I've had people argue with me and say, well, Bill, you can't look at last year or the year before. You're absolutely right. But let's look at what Florida State has to do. You come in as number one. All right, in my opinion, until you lose as the number one defending national champion, you stay number one. All right, I'm not worried about the type of games you played and whether or not they're close or not. 6 of their 12 games this year by the Seminoles have been decided by 6 or fewer points. But the fact of the matter is they have not lost. And every single week, they're getting a team that is bringing their absolute best, because you want to knock out the best. You want to knock out the defending national champs. I mean, where else do you see, when you look at standings, and you will see a team that's 12-0, and then other teams that are 11-1 or 10-1, and they're above them? It doesn't make sense. Listen, they have to play one more game here against Georgia Tech, and if they lose and they're a 12-1 team, then I have no problems with the committee at the end of this weekend looking and comparing Florida State as a 12-1 team to other teams that might be 12-1 or maybe even 11-2, and saying, are they the best team? But until they lose, you cannot knock them down off of that perch. Now, I'm going to jump around just a bit and save my best nugget of nonsense. That's what I'm calling it, for last. So I'll step away from the top for a moment, because when you hear this, if you haven't caught this already, it is absolutely hilarious and blows this whole committee thing right out of the water. I'll get to it in a minute. But for the Mizzou fans, listen, again, as I said, I'm not making the argument that Missouri at this point should be considered for the top four. Not at all. But the fact that they're 16th is absolutely ridiculous. Even because at this point, even if they go out Saturday and they were to beat Alabama 49-0, all right, not going to happen. Probably not going to happen. Even if it did, at this point, though, being ranked 16th, they have no chance of being Final Four team. Michigan State, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Georgia, and UCLA all have no chance of winning a conference championship. 3 of those teams I mentioned have 3 losses, and they're ahead of Missouri. I don't understand it. I do not understand it whatsoever. Now, you look at the Power 5 conferences, all right, and 4 of those have conference championships this weekend. That's 8 teams. And then you've got the Big 12, and they've got 3 teams right now with TCU, Baylor, and Kansas State with 2 losses, still technically involved in this thing where they're in the hunt. So you're looking at 11 teams. Missouri should be certainly within the top 11. Now, if you want to debate as to whether or not they're as good as Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia Tech, hey, I'm fine with that. But you've got teams with 3 losses or teams that don't have any chance or aren't playing this weekend for a conference championship. They should not be ahead of somebody that is in a conference championship game. I mean, that's just, again, my opinion. And again, it goes back to wins and losses, letting these teams decide these things on the field. Absolutely no sense. I talked about the wins and losses. Listen, all right, so TCU is ranked 3rd and Baylor is 6th. Both teams 10-1. And you had Baylor that beat TCU. Now, here's my nugget of nonsense. When the chairman, Jeff Long, of this playoff committee explains to Reese Davis on ESPN why the committee put TCU ahead of Baylor. Listen to this. This was his response.
Baylor's loss is against a West Virginia team that's outside the top 25, and TCU's win is against Baylor, who's number 6. So that comes into play. So I don't think we just say that. It's certainly one of the factors as we look at many, many different things. But overall, the evaluation, the human evaluation of this is what this committee's designed to do. And I think they've done that in this case with TCU and Baylor.
Yeah, unless I misunderstood you, I think you meant to say that Baylor's win over TCU. And I have to ask you this.
Did you hear that? Listen to this again. Here's Law.
And TCU's win is against Baylor, who's number 6. So that comes into play. So I don't think.
What? There's a subconscious slip. Long, nice job. TCU did not beat Baylor. Listen, these clowns sitting in this committee room can't even figure out who the best team is in the Big 12, and we're going to leave it up to them to decide the best 4 in college football. He said it right there. I mean, he basically went against his total argument there by slipping up. If you think or either perceive that TCU beat Baylor, so they should be ahead of them, I mean, you just shot yourself in the foot. This committee is a joke. Like I said, it's basically popularity, and we're stuck with it, and it's terrible. It's terrible for sports in North America that we're looking at this like figure skating, where no matter what you do on the field, no matter what your record is, you look at Missouri; they've won 6 games in a row. There's only 3 other teams ahead of them. Of the 15 teams, there's only 3 of them that have won 7 in a row. They're one of the hottest teams in football right now, and they're sitting in 16th. And then you've got a team like Baylor who beat TCU, and if they win a tough game against Kansas State, should be the Big 12 win. It should be in the Final Four, and they probably won't be because TCU is going to walk all over Iowa State. It's baloney. Absolute baloney. So those are my opinions. Listen, I've got comments at the bottom of this video at MissouriNet.com. I want to hear from your thoughts. And, of course, on Twitter, at Missouri Sports. I was having a couple of nice arguments with some people last night, too. So I always love to hear your side of the story. Love to hear your opinion. Never shoot you down. Always just like to express my point. I want to hear from you, too. That's what it's all about here at MissouriNet.com. Hey, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again real soon.